This is Mastering Your Wealth with David Gagnon, the podcast.
David, there was a recent study from our friends at Allianz that found that almost half of investors don't have an income plan for retirement. They broke it down like this. They said 48% are worried they will live too frugally and not enjoy their retirement. And then only 27% report hearing their advisors discuss the topic. Those are terrifying numbers and reasonings right there. So shouldn't income planning be like job number one when it comes to retirement planning?
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's probably the most important piece to your planning puzzle is your income plan. And the income plan really should be comprised of other components that make it work most efficiently. And you want to kind of align that with a tax plan. And you also want to align it with the right investment plan so that it's going to be creating the income you need for the long as you think you're going to live tax efficiently. When Allianz did that, when you said they had a 50% felt comfortable with their income plan, well, you know who those 50% people are. They don't really have an income plan. They just have plenty of money, and they can just live off of that nest egg and not have to worry about running out of income. But I can tell you, there's not a real strategic income plan that they're probably working off of. They just have a lot of money. The other 50%, they're the ones that need the income plan more than anybody because they can't afford to make mistakes, and they usually don't find out until they're a few years into retirement that what they've been doing is not working out. And usually it's a problem where they've spent down money because they don't have the right plan, the right investments or income tools, and now they got to make big adjustments to their spending because there's just not enough of a nest egg there to make it work. And you don't want to be in that position. Your plan needs to be done today. I don't care what age you are, because if we get the younger folks and they're doing what the masses keep doing over and over again and not getting the ideal results that you could get with a good plan, they're going to keep making the same mistakes in their blind spot. And these mistakes that occur in your blind spot compound, right, over time. And they get bigger and bigger to unravel later or get better results later. And so when we look at income, we want to take a look at, I don't care if you're in your 40s or 50s or your 60s, we want to make sure that when you get closer to retirement, your investments are going to be aligned with your income needs because you go from a growth and accumulation phase into an income distribution phase when you get into retirement. And you have to make some changes. You know, a few years back, I had a couple come in. They had been retired for a while. They were in their, they retired at age 60. And they were around 64, 65 when they came into us. And they felt they had a great income plan. Well, the way their money was allocated, they were living off of their savings and after-tax investments when they first retired. And they felt pretty good about the fact that they paid virtually little taxes until they got to the point where all that money was gone, their after-tax money. Now they had a substantial nest egg in their retirement accounts that kept growing along the way. And also they collected their Social Security at 62. And so when I was talking to them with our first meeting, I asked them, are you aware of the required minimum distributions you're going to have to take out on all this money? And they didn't even know anything about it. And so when we did the analysis, we showed that their required minimum distributions were going to more than double what they needed to spend and live on. And then they wanted to have the conversation about doing Roth conversions. I said, well, now you're at a point in your life where you're on Medicare, or you're going on Medicare soon. You spent all your after-tax money to live on, which should have been the money that would have been used or should have been used for Roth conversions to even make it work right. And plus, they claimed their Social Security at 62, and they took a permanent haircut on income that they didn't need at the time, and they paid hardly no tax on that. But that's what they felt good about. The bottom line is they didn't realize how big of a tax problem they were creating later when they had to fall back on their IRA, the required minimum distributions, and now they had no way to control that. And so what we had to do was, obviously, there were a lot of things we couldn't do now because it was too late in the game of planning, and they used the wrong assets at the wrong time in their income distribution plan. So what I'm trying to get at is you really should look at income planning, not when you retire or in retirement, we should try to get to it before retirement. So you can strategically make better decisions for tax planning, use the right tools that you have at your disposal, whether it's after-tax investments or pre-tax, because there is a method and there is a financial formula. If you understand the tax code and the investment tools out there to really optimize that tax code and solve for your planning needs and benefits, whether you're in an accumulation phase, there's different things that you're going to do versus an income distribution phase. There are different things that you're going to do and put your money in. And planning, there's a lot of moving parts. And, we have to evaluate each area that's part of that plan. And Social Security claiming, if we had done the analysis for this couple before they made that decision, they would have had more income from Social Security in their lifetime. And they would have been in a position to do some tax planning and be more tax efficient and control their RMDs later. But like I said, if you keep making some mistakes that are in your blind spot that could benefit you greatly throughout your retirement, but you caught it too late in the game to actually implement, now that's a very costly thing you have to live with that you can't unravel. It's too late in the game. So the sooner you find out these planning solutions and opportunities, the better, because when you start making better financial decisions and get to compound those benefits instead of having those expenses compound against you because you didn't know how to fix it. Now, the long-term results in wealth accumulation and having more income aren't so good. So
it's a bunch of moving parts that have to move in the same direction.
Yeah, and so it's we eat and live and breathe this, and I've been doing this for over 40 years between being a CPA and working on the wealth management and comprehensive planning areas. A lot of times when I see people for the first time and I see what they're doing, I kind of already know what is working and what isn't. But we always run the analysis so we can show them in black and white with a logical, rational approach to show them how they could benefit from doing things possibly differently or how things are working out that they don't need to change.
There was a new survey from the Global Atlantic Financial Group, and they talked to people between the ages of 55 and 75, and they found that over half of them would rather protect their existing savings than seek growth on their wealth. So, David, does this hold true with your clients? And if so, how do you find an acceptable balance between the two?
Yeah, I mean, you can have your cake and eat it too today because there's so many ways to get to that point. And what we're always trying to do is building growth into an investment plan and also safety, put airbags on the money. And today is so different with our choices and what we can do in designing a customized planning for your investment strategies and make sure your strategy is aligned with your time of life. So if you're working, then you're in your accumulation years for most people. So they're looking to accumulate and have some growth, but also have some safety components along the way. And we show folks how to do that. But also when you get into your distribution and income years, then there are still ways to get that income and have also safety on your money and also have growth built in. And everybody's plan is going to be different. Everybody's investment temperament is going to be different. So we can show folks that you don't have to take a lot of risk to get good returns. And the bottom line is you really want to get to a plan that has consistency in return and little volatility along the way, because you will build more wealth that way. And it's due to the fact that if you can avoid those big dips in the market and not wait for recoveries to get back to break even, but in lieu of that, if we find a way to eliminate those big dips in the market and get more consistency in returns, you don't have to try to hit the home runs by buying the stocks that are going to get the best returns, but also expose you to a lot of risk, right? When you look at baseball, the successful baseball teams that win more frequently than others, they hit for consistency. They don't hit home runs. They're not focused on the home runs because a lot of times there's lack of consistency.
Yeah, I was going to say, you swing for the fences, you're going to miss.
Right.
You swing for base hits, you're more successful.
Right. So in your financial game, you want to find ways to be consistent with your money and also efficient with your money. And we lower risk by being very efficient in other ways in what people are doing with their money. By how do you reduce your taxes? How do you be very tax efficient in retirement? because a lot of people have taken a lot of risk in different ways, not just by losing risk in their investment plan or losing money in their investment plan, but also paying unnecessary taxes. So if taxes are an erosion factor on your money and you're paying more than your fair share, then you're going to have to take more risk to overcompensate for that inefficiency in overpaying your taxes. So if we can find ways to be efficient on taxes and also show you how to invest by taking advantage of the tools out there that give you buffers on the downside of the market or hedging strategies, and not sacrifice the opportunity to grab the gains when they're there, now we can build more consistency and have less volatility and less sleepless nights, right? So you have to look at everybody's sleep factor, which is different. But some people are swinging for the fences, and they might be okay with that. But there's a better way of getting to the end game with your money and not have to take that kind of risk. And so, risk can be mitigated. You don't have to take a lot of risk to get good returns on your money.
Gen X comedian Dan Reagan, he says he just doesn't like to go out, but if he does, he adheres to some strict rules. Let's hear what he has to say.
First, spontaneous plans are no longer a part of my life. Now, spontaneous has a 2 to an 11-day planning curve. How far is it? When does it start? And more importantly, when does it end? What's the condition of the restrooms? The food could be excellent, and I will still not go back if the restrooms are subpar. What's the parking situation like? I'm not against turning around and going home if the parking is a little too intense. Do they have real menus, or do I have to do that scanning thingy? I wonder why I'm never invited anywhere.
Listen, I'm not going to lie. A lot of his concerns I have, how far is it? What's the parking? Do I have to pay for parking? I mean, going out these days is just different than it used to be, Dave, right?
Yeah, I know. People don't like a lot of choices and decisions anymore. I don't know. I don't know if you see it that way, but people like simplicity.
Oh,
right?
I do. Oh, my gosh. Right. Simple the better. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have so much information at our fingertips with the smartphones, right? So a lot of people are expecting to make decisions pretty quick, and they can, get an answer on their cell phone pretty fast. But everybody's temperament about what they're willing to deal with as far as obstacles and whatever they're doing, whether it's this guy going to the restaurant. I think people just want simplicity and ease of making decisions.
Yeah, 100%. I don't need all the fancy in the show. I just need simple and easy and a lot of times quick, right? Convenience is a big part of, I think, a lot of our every single day. But, it got me thinking here. Obviously, Reagan, he is talking about going out, how much of a hassle it is and all these things you have to account for, from parking to the menu, etc. That same feeling a lot of people get when it comes to thinking about hiring a financial advisor, David, somebody like you. So how many minds have you changed when they finally sit down with you? Because let's be honest, this can be a stressful and overwhelming and sometimes confusing conversation to start.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the world of finance and planning and investing and taxes, it's very complicated. And a lot of times people that do reach out to us, I always want to know if they're working with an advisor, if they're trying to figure this out on their own. But the reason why they're calling is they feel there's something missing in things that they could do in a better way in their financial decisions. And a lot of times what I do find is that people aren't getting truly the value they need to really optimize their financial resources or their planning going forward. And if you're working with an advisor, you have to understand what that advisor can do for you and what they can't. And if they're just basically selling you an investment, but they can't help you in all the other areas of making good financially sound decisions that optimize those resources, such as your Social Security, your pension, how to set up an income distribution plan, using the right portfolio of investment choices and product options to really truly align with your long-range planning needs, doing estate planning, tax planning. A lot of these areas, an investment or product salesperson cannot help you with. And we're getting a lot of calls from people that are in that type of situation because they have some critical decisions to make, but they can't get the help from the person they're working with. And a lot of times it's a tax planning question or evaluation or really looking at income planning. And so it's something that if there's more obstacles for somebody to look at, which are all in these different areas of your financial puzzle, and you don't really know how to address them, you're going to suffer. You're probably going to make some costly mistakes because it's a choice you're going to make purely on emotion and a gut feeling and not based on details of a true planning analysis and some professional help. And I think it's important that when somebody is working with somebody that's going to help them invest their money, they want to know, the first question you should ask that investment person is, how do you know this is the best thing for my planning? And they can't answer it because they haven't put together a plan. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to have a backwards plan, which means you've invested your money first, and then you hope it's going to work. That's not a plan. Most people invest and they hope for the best, and they hope that when they get to the day of retirement, they've saved enough, they have the money in the right places for their income, they're paying the least amount of taxes legally possible because their money is in the right places, and the money's going to last as long as they think they're going to live. So, this is a plan of hope. Too many people are going into retirement with blind hope, and you don't want to be in that situation. And a lot of, there are a lot of people that try to figure this out on their own because, look, we have the internet, right? There's so much information there, right?
That's right.
And you can Google any topic. You're going to get bombarded with a lot of information that is going to be on both sides of the table, meaning one piece of advice is going to contradict somebody else is saying on the internet. And it gets really confusing for people to see and pare down what is really appropriate for them. Mm-hmm. And how do you sift through all this financial fog to figure out what you should do based on all this data? And that's where we really create a lot of clarity. We can sift through all that and really employ what's applicable to a particular person's financial needs and situation going forward, and then focus on that and educate on that and validate the numbers.
For more details or to sit down with David for your complimentary financial GPS, visit masteringyourwealthradio.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Wealth Advisors, LLC, BWA, a registered investment advisor and an affiliate of Brookstone Capital Management, LLC. BWA and First Financial Planners are independent of each other. Insurance products and services are not offered through BWA, but are offered and sold through individually licensed and appointed agents.
Information provided is not intended as tax or legal advice and should not be relied on as such. You are encouraged to seek tax or legal advice from an independent professional.
Any comments regarding safe and secure products and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims-paying ability of the issuing company and are not offered by Brookstone.
David Gagnon and First Financial Planners are not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.
Registered investment advisors and investment advisor representatives act as fiduciaries for all of our investment management clients. We have an obligation to act in the best interests of our clients and to make full disclosure of any conflicts of interest. Please refer to our firm brochure, the ADV 2A Item 4, for additional information.